Simon, you wrote about this in a recent story available on Bloomberg.com. Who's making this prognostication?
The Jerome Levy forecasting centre up in New York State are making the call. They see a 65% chance of a global recession pulling down the US into negative territory sometime before the end of next year. It's a pretty bold call. It counters those made by Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, which say both the global and the world expansions have a great deal more room to run.
And what is their credibility here? What makes this Jerome Levy Foundation forecasting center someone to pay attention to?
They've got a pretty good track record. It's hit and miss. It dates back to in 1929, Jerome Levy, obviously the namesake of the centre, pulled all his money out of stocks before the crash. More recently, they forecast the troubles in the subprime market, the economic troubles that we saw at the end of 2008, 2009. They've had a few misses as well. Back in 2010, they were calling for another recession in the US by a 60% chance of that occurring, and obviously it didn't. So it's certainly a bold call. They don't back away and say it's not a bold call. It's certainly one of the more tail risks out there when you look at the broad range of forecasts looking at the world economy next year.
And the person making the call here is David, Jerome's grandson. What are his credentials? Has he worked anywhere else?
He's worked at the forecasting centre for quite a while, and he's built up quite a reputation as an opinionated analyst, particularly profits, which his grandfather was a scrutineer of a very closely watched profit performance, and used that as an indicator of how the overall economy is performing.
Okay, and in this particular case, he agrees with most of the other banks that the U.S. is better off than some of the other global economies, but it's the global weakness that's going to pull the U.S. down.
Yeah, he notes that every previous period of economic contraction since World War II, it was the US who led the way. So weakness in the US infected the rest of the world. This time it's a turnaround. He sees the rest of the world, Europe, Japan, being so weak that they pull the US down with them.
And in particular, we're talking about U.S. exports and the reliance of American companies on profits overseas.
Absolutely. These are a couple of the data points he points out. Exports are about 13% of GDP. Now, the bulls will say, well, that shows that the rest of the world isn't that important to the U.S. He notes on the other side that it's still the highest in history. So the rest of the world has a bigger effect now.